Well, hello, everyone, and welcome here to FNL Gridiron. Nick and Astis, Steve Beals with you, getting set for another playoff edition of the best show statewide when it comes to high school football. We've got the best guests, at least, we can say that. How about Joe Marshala making his return to the program in about 15 minutes or so? He's the founder, of course, of NH-highschoolsports.com. He's been traveling with the Souhegan Sabres all season long. He's got the insight on their upcoming semifinal game in Division II. But, of course, Joe keeps an eye on everything and anything football in the state of New Hampshire. So we'll break down, I guess, all four brackets if we can, with Joe coming up in about 10, maybe 15 minutes. Then at the bottom of the hour, Zach Matthews returns, head coach of the Bedford Bulldogs. Of course, his team, the defending Division I champions, an undefeated regular season, and a number 3 seed in the Division I tournament. They had a bye last weekend and will play host to Salem on Saturday. Speaking of that game, it's the second broadcast of the weekend for us here at Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire, as we get things going on Friday night, a 6 o'clock kickoff on the Seacoast between Nashua North and Portsmouth. That's a Division I quarterfinal matchup between the Titans and Clippers. It's our Friday Night Lights New Hampshire Game of the Week, presented by Beals Insurance, and gets underway with our pregame coverage at 5:45. Then on Saturday, part 2 of our playoff doubleheader, Bedford playing host to Salem. That's a 5 o'clock kick on Saturday. Our pregame begins at 4:45. So tonight, again, our guests, Joe Marshala of NH-highschoolsports.com, and also Zach Matthews, the head coach of the Bedford Bulldogs. Steve, we saw some great action over the weekend. We'll get to the scores in a moment. But at least in Division I, we have the teams that a lot of people expected to see in the final 8. It went chalk over the weekend. Again, scores coming up, but the top 8 seeds are going to square off both on Friday and Saturday night this weekend to determine next week's Final Four. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are the game that we did last week, Nick. BG and Dover. You realize it's just hard to imagine. If you had told me that Dover wasn't going to be in the final 8 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have taken that bet, or not taken that bet, I should say. That I believe that they were certainly going to be there. But BG put together a game last week, a game plan, and then execution on the field, and then a lot of good coaching on the sidelines that defeated Dover. I wouldn't call it easy, but easier than I thought it would be. And here they are going to Pinkerton. But that's the only surprise that I had at this point. How about Nashua North? Nashua North, who beat BG earlier in the season, works their way into a game. And Nick, we had talked online and offline about how North and how strong they looked and how balanced, with a lot of players, especially in the trenches, really coming up big last week. So to do that doubleheader was really a good move, because we saw 2 teams that are in the 8, the final 8 here, that are riding well. But it's not going to get easy. You got to go in. You got to play the iron of the league all year long in Portsmouth under Coach Pafford and Coach O'Reilly with the Pinkerton Astros. So that's Exeter and Londonderry we saw before, but Exeter comes out with a resounding win there at Exeter, and that's the team that's a little difficult to figure, because they have played extremely well and can match up and just been on fire, and then other games have fallen a little bit short. We'll see what they certainly look like their crews at this good point. So I'm excited about a very good weekend of football, and Exeter, of course, is going to get their going to face the solid iron as well in Londonderry, who's another team that's just flying. If you look at the improvement of where they originally played Wyndham, and then you look at the benchmark when they played later, boy, you talk about a team that was always good, but all cylinders are running there too. So a lot of good things happen. I'm really excited to talk to Zach Matthews tonight, because having a bye, I'm really kind of interested to see what he thinks. You never know, is a bye good or is a bye not so good? be interested to talk to him about that and other things this evening.
Yeah, you mentioned the Bishop Girton Dover game. That was the 8-9 matchup, and that was a shootout.
Wow.
98 combined points between the two teams. That broadcast is doing well on our YouTube channel. You can still check it out. It's under the video
Yeah.
section. Again, we're online on YouTube at FNLNH Media. That was a 56-42 final for Bishop Girton. The Cardinals never trailed in that game. They advance, and they will take on Pinkerton. That's a rematch from back in early October. In fact, that was the last game that the Cardinals have lost. Since then, 4 straight wins, including the postseason victory on Saturday. Pinkerton, as we know, 9-0 coming off the first round bye. That game is Friday night in Derry. You mentioned Londonderry and Wyndham. That was a rematch from the regular season as well. And Londonderry shut out the Jaguars 46-0. The final score there. Lancers have not lost since week number 4. Their only loss of the regular season at Pinkerton. They will play host to Exeter. They beat Keene by a final score of 31-13 in the preliminary round. And they'll have a rematch from 3 weeks ago in a game that was won handily by Londonderry. Nashua North and Alvern. That was a game in which the Titans jumped out to a big lead. Alvern able to finish strong but not close the gap. Final score there, 27-14. That game is also up on our YouTube channel, FNLNH Media. And finally, Salem put up 55 in a win over Spalding. 55-34 the final. The loss snapped the 5-game win streak for the Red Raiders, and it also snapped a 2-game skid for Salem as they're back on the winning track, looking to play spoiler on the road Saturday night against Bedford. So those were the Division I first-round scores from last weekend. We'll get you caught up in D2 as well. Top seed Pelham knocked off Kennett 49-8. They have now won, I believe, 39 straight. It might be up to 40 at this point, but they've been rolling for the better part of 3 years. They'll take on St. Thomas. The Saints held off Sanborn in the 4-5 matchup, 21-7. Plymouth will get a rematch against Souhegan as the Bobcats down John Stark 28-8. They'll face the Sabres in Plymouth, as Plymouth is the 2 seed and Souhegan is the 1, despite the fact that Souhegan beat Plymouth back in, I believe, week number 4. The Sabres with no problem with Bow, 54-6 to advance. So the Final 4 in Division 2, top seed and defending champion Pelham playing host to St. Thomas, whereas Plymouth will host Souhegan in a 2-3 matchup. In D3, we have the final. It'll be championship weekend in Division 3 and 4 this week. Campbell and Trinity in D3. That is a rematch from, I believe, early October. It was a 6-0 final in which the Bobcats shut out the Pioneers. So Trinity
overtime
looking for revenge. I believe so.
Overtime.
Campbell looking to get it done and run the table. So top seed Campbell and number 2 Trinity in Division 3. And finally, in Division 4, the top seed Newport back in another final. They are going to face off against longtime rival Somersworth, the 2 seed. The Tigers with a 35-7 win over Bishop Brady in the semis. Somersworth topped Raymond 28-8. And again, we're just minutes away from breaking all of this down with our first guest, Joe Marshala of NHHighSchoolSports.com. But there you go, Steve. Some of the lower divisions checking in here. Obviously, 2 championship games coming up, a semifinal round as well in Division 2. And we've got the quarterfinals in Division 1. As you said to me earlier today, off air, it's one of your favorite weekends of the entire calendar year.
Well, I mean, you get to the point where the teams that belong there are there because they've won their way to that point. I think the point system has worked very well overall, given the fact they had 21 teams and they had to kind of break it up into 3 divisions. I think they did everything. They're squeezing every bit of juice they can get out of the lemon, Nick, with creating an environment where the best teams can get into the playoffs. I think that happened clearly. And I think as we go to the quarterfinals, I always get excited at that because people start feeling closer and closer to get to that championship game, and the play, the attitude, and the excitement that goes into it here at Division One, particularly as far as having those teams going forward. As far as Sauhegan and Joe Marshalina's. I watched episode 11 of the season. We'll talk about that a little bit with him. I just watched that today, and that team is not affected from what I saw. Where they played John Stark, and they look extremely powerful, very, very solid team, and be very interesting to see where that all winds up. Wouldn't be surprised. I think anyone, this sense of expectation that Sauhegan and Pelham will wind up in a championship game, but don't tell that to St. Thomas and Plymouth, Nick, because they're in for it. You know, they're going to go. But the game that I've really got my eye on is just finals this week between Campbell. I talked to two people over the season that were at that game, I believe, in Campbell, and they said it was an absolute barn burner right down to the wire. The excitement, the intensity, and there was no domination. 6-0 in overtime is by no means domination. I would expect that Trinity on a neutral site and turf will see if they can, because it's very difficult to win it, to beat a team 2 times. We'll see what happens right there. But Campbell is on fire as well. So we got some great teams, great lineup across the divisions. It's difficult to get videotape on the Division 4, to be honest with you. But I certainly wish both those teams well, too. So, but the game that we're doing with Salem, and we're going to have Zach Matthews on, that game is also a game that's a lot of intrigue with that, because Salem is on fire as well. Yes, they had a skid, but they had a skid against Pinkerton and London and Londonderry, if I'm not mistaken. And they fought hard in those games and showed that they have end of fourth quarter stamina and attitude to not give up easy. This is the first time that Bedford's going to be playing this year, be interested this year against Salem. That's going to be a great matchup, and I think there'll be a ton of people watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have that for you again Saturday night, 5 o'clock kick, 4:45, the pregame. That's the second part of our weekend playoff doubleheader. Of course, we're live tomorrow night, Friday night, on the Seacoast at Portsmouth High School for a 6 o'clock kick between Nashua North and Portsmouth, with pregame coverage beginning at 5:45. All right, he's right on time, so let's bring him right in. Joe Marshalina, our first guest, the founder, NH-highschoolsports.com. Joe, can you just turn down your speaker a little bit?
Yeah, I got an echo.
Hey, sorry, guys.
All right, that's all right. There you go. Much better.
All right.
It looks like we're having dueling bookcases here.
I think this might be the fourth different location in the house that I've taken you guys to.
That's right.
Getting a tour.
I believe last time we were in the basement.
Yeah, it's a little too cold down there today.
Yeah.
Joe, let's start with Division 1. And I know Steve's got some questions for you with the season. We'll break down D2, 3, and 4 as well. But let's start in D1 here. As we take a brief look back over the weekend in that opening round, it went chalk. All 5 of the top seeds advanced. All 5 home teams defended the home field advantage. Your big takeaway from any of those 5 games?
I guess I'm just not surprised. Like, I kind of thought that was going to be the case going in. I know I had picked Dover last week to beat BG, but I really thought that game was a toss-up. I wasn't too sure. I didn't really think that we weren't going to see like what we saw a year ago with a couple of first round upsets. And I'd say the same in Division 1 for this weekend too. You guys were saying earlier about the buys. How is it going to affect teams? And if you look at last year, 2 of the 3 teams that had the bye lost, and the third, Londonderry, had a tougher time with Merrimack than I think we thought. This year, I would be more surprised if the bye has that effect. I think those top 4 seeds are certainly the favorites going into these games, and I think it would be a big surprise to me if any of them didn't make the semis.
So you like the home teams again this weekend?
Absolutely.
If Joe, let me throw this at you. If you had to pick one of the lower seeds to pull an upset this weekend, who would it be?
Good question.
That is that's a good question. I find myself again. I am surprised at that I would say this because I've had Bedford number one in my power poll all year, but I think Salem's probably going to be the toughest team that they've seen so far this year. I'm not saying that I'm going to pick Salem to win that game, but I think that game might be a little bit closer than a lot of people would expect. But that would be, you look at two of the other games you had. Londonderry beat Exeter, pretty convincingly when they met. Same with Pinkerton and BG. I could see the other game, Portsmouth and North, being a little bit like Portsmouth's game against Merrimack, where it's a little low scoring. North is just so good defensively, but I don't think they have enough on the other side of the ball to upset Portsmouth. So I think, as much as it surprises me, I would say Salem Bedford might be the best game of the weekend in Division One.
And then, of course, in D2, Pelham just continues to not only roll, but roll big, as they've now extended their overall win streak, I believe, to 39, maybe 40 games. Another big blowout win in the quarterfinals. St. Thomas is next up in the semifinals. I know you've been traveling with Sauhegan, et cetera, but really all eyes have been on Pelham, at least from my vantage point, all season long. How good are they, Joe? And if they do end up winning it again easily, is it time maybe to consider a jump up to Division One?
Ooh.
I don't. I
He's
think
not being easy on you, Joe.
Yeah, I know. I think they're very good. I don't think they're as good as they were a year ago. Just because of the number of guys that they had moving in and out. From last year's team. I'm really curious to see how this game goes because if you remember, they played each other in the regular season, but it was that weird week 2 when all those thunderstorms came through. They barely even played a half of football that Pelham won 14-0. So I'm interested to see what happens with them this weekend. In terms of moving up, I can't. I mean, yeah, Pelham and Sauhegan have both been dominant in Division 2 this year, but to try to ask Pelham is a team that was in D3 a couple of years ago just because of their enrollment. I'm sure their numbers are good for the size school that they are. Same with Sauhegan. I just don't think if they were able to somehow consistently get out like 80 kids, maybe. But and they could compete with a D1 team this week or that week, but for a whole 9-10 game into the playoff season, I think that's asking too much for schools that are that much smaller.
Steve?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Joe. It's kind of like Trinity used to be. They could always play Division I teams in the Turkey Bowl against Central and West and Memorial. They'd play some cross conference. They'd play in the Jamboree, and you'd see them do exceedingly well, often many of those years. But going on that Division I schedule is going to be a grind, and I think you just nailed it. 75, 80 kids or above, yes, consistently. 45, 55, it's just you have an injury, you just don't have that depth coming in the number 2s and 3s to get it done. I know we'd like to see it. I think to Nick's question, I'd love to see it because I think they could compete, but they have to do what's right for the school. The challenge is in Division II, there just seems to be such a drop-off, Joe, right? After 3 or 4 teams.
I certainly agree with that too. I think we're still in kind of like a weird kind of situation here. I think with certain schools having, certain classes that were affected by, what happened in 2020 and 2021 with COVID, I think we're still maybe starting next year we might see that finally work its way out in most places because now we're talking about these seniors this year were freshmen in that 2020 football season, so now we're talking about getting I think classes through that have had maybe a normal run through middle school and into high school, and I think that there's still some programs that are still trying to fill in those gaps. And then just aren't there yet. And it just so happens that, Pelham and Sauhegan haven't had if they got hit with those kind of things, it didn't hit them as hard.
Before we go to the season, Joe, I'd like to just go down. This Division Three matchup final is a war. I've talked to people. I think you were at that game, if I'm not mistaken, right? No,
I was at the final last year. I did not make it to their regular season game this year.
maybe okay, but I've talked to two people that were at that game, and they said it was just an unbelievable game, and they expect nothing less. Your thoughts on that matchup as we come in, noting that it won't be home for Campbell, and it'll also be on turf. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that does make a big difference because if I recall, they played that game under lights at Campbell. Like there was the rented lights. Pictures from video from that game looked like it was like they got flashlights instead of actual lights. It was really dark. Um, and sure, with all the crazy weather we've had, I would imagine the field conditions weren't the best. Yeah, I think the turf does make a big difference. But I mean, look at what happened last year. I mean, we thought last year that Trinity blew Campbell off the field in the regular season, and then Campbell comes in and plays ball control. Just runs it all over the place. Their time of possession was like 40 minutes or something like that in that game. Yeah, and I kind of would expect a game similar to that. I mean, these two teams know each other pretty well at this point. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. It'll be nice that the game is on turf. It'll be a little colder on Saturday, I think, but looks like it's supposed to be relatively sunny day. I think that'll be nice. Which kind of opens the door for both teams to do anything, I think, in their repertoires. But I think you're going to have another close one down to the wire.
Question on, well, we obviously know the division, but the understanding is, this is what what's going around, that Trinity will go to D2 next year. That is, I don't believe there's any official confirmation of that, but that's probably don't be surprised if that happens. What do you think about Campbell and Trinity both going up Division II, and given the strength that those programs have and have shown consistently year after year after year, making Division II maybe a little happier, more competitive place?
I've heard the same thing about Trinity. I think we're another week or two away from everything being finalized. Like I said, I heard the same thing about Trinity. Campbell, I think, would be in the same boat, going up to D2, like we talked about Sauhegan and Pelham being in D1. From the numbers I saw, Campbell might have even had to petition up to D3, just that their enrollment might be that low. So again, I think it would be a tough situation. It would be great, I think it would be great to see, and it might be easier for them to swing than, say Pelham going to D1. But I think it still opens the door for the same thing. I think there'll be some other moves that we see though that are going to make maybe D3 a little bit better.
Right. Absolutely. Excuse me. Let's talk about the season, Joe. For those who don't know, Joe every year follows a football team and has anywhere from 10 to 12 episodes. Usually, I think it's 12 or 13, actually, by the end of it. I just watched episode 11 and was really interested in, I thought these guests that you had on there, these young men, and Coach Robin Burkett as well, always good, really demonstrated the feeling of seniors as they approach their last regular season game at home, and the emotions came out a little bit with these guys. It was very authentic, extremely well done. But I encourage anyone to watch it. I really enjoyed it. I was going to grab just 10 minutes of the 31 minutes, and then I ended up watching the whole thing and falling behind, much to the director's chagrin, because I was on late. But I thought it was very, very well done. Your thoughts on the season to this date, and specifically the emotions that were demonstrated on that program to show what these young fellows are going through as they are going to be disbanding and never playing together again after the season.
Well, thanks first off for those kind words there. I'm glad I was able to get you hooked on there. These guys have been fantastic. I hope it comes, and it sounds like it does, but I hope it comes across how much these guys seem to enjoy each other and enjoy playing football together and enjoy playing for Coach Burkett because they really do. I've been blown away at times how just how much these guys a lot of stuff just rolls off of them. They handle adversity really well. They know they're just so. I'm trying to just kind of level-headed, I guess, for high school seniors. And they've been a real pleasure to work with. It's funny because I'll show up on a whatever day I'm coming out to do the interviews, and if there's a couple of them there waiting, they kind of fight with each other over who's going to go first, which I can't say I've ever had before, and is is a good feeling because there have been some of these at times where you get to the end of the year and it's I got to do these interviews again, but these guys seem to genuinely like it, and I wasn't surprised that they were a little bit that they shared a little bit of that emotion about senior night.
Yeah, it was really shows you what happens when a group of fellas get together years ago, 4 years ago, and they work their way up through the system and what it's like to take. It's almost they were shocked at how fast it happened. They weren't aware. They thought, it's always going to be like this. And then you realize, wow, this is it. And one, I forgot who it was. It might have been, J.J. Bright is a very well-spoken young man. I felt, and I believe it was him that was saying that it's going to make us play even harder because we're all talking about it and aware of it. So, Joe, where would people they go to watch the series? Because that was episode. Did you hear me, Joe?
I think I froze up there. What was it? I'm sorry, I missed.
I was talking about J.J. Bright being extremely well-spoken. I thought that he really articulated it well when he said that we're going to play harder than ever. Everybody knows it because they realize that the clock is ticking and time's running out. And they want it. They're extremely motivated. I was just going to say there's 11 episodes to watch. I think I've watched 5 of the 11 so far. We'll go back and watch the others as well. But where do they go? Where do the folks go this season?
All the episodes are on the website, nh-highschoolsports.com. There is I believe a tab or a spot on the homepage that has maybe the last 4 or 5 episodes. There's also a tab on the top that says the season. That'll take you to a link for the playlist on YouTube. It is also they're all on the YouTube page as well, NHHS Sports on YouTube, so you can go back and catch up on all of them there. So a couple of different places, and the links that are on the site just take you to what's on YouTube.
Nick, are we going to be able to talk about Division I? I'll turn it back to you, and maybe we'll get a few more. But take it away. Hopefully, we'll have time.
We're just about out of time, Steve. Joe, where are you going to be this weekend? I know you'll be with Sauhegan, but are you covering anything else? Any other games that you'll be at?
Planning on going to Pinkerton Friday night for that game against BG. That one's the closest to me, so I figured that would be my best bet. And then I will be making the trek up to Plymouth on Saturday for that game, the semifinal with Sauhegan. Actually, this will be the first football game that I've covered at Plymouth since 2006. So I'm kind of excited. I'm sure not much has changed up there in that time, but I'm kind of excited to see that. And then I'm going to try to make it back down for the Salem-Bedford game if that one ends early enough.
That's going to be a great game for sure. No question.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Joe, as usual, we appreciate the time, and we'll talk again very soon. Good luck this weekend, and thanks again. We appreciate it.
We'll see you in Bedford.
Thanks for having me, guys. Sounds good.
That's Joe Marshala, founder of nh-highschoolsports.com. All right, on the other side of the break, we bring in head coach Zach Matthews from the Bedford Bulldogs. The defending champs, after a week off, will face maybe their toughest opponent so far in Salem in the quarterfinal round. On the other side, Coach Matthews, you are watching FNL Gridiron, presented by Beals Insurance.
Our broadcast today, as it always is brought to you by Beals Insurance Agency, with locations now in both Bedford and Londonderry. Whether you need home, auto, or business insurance, Beals Insurance will get you both the price and quality coverage that's right for you. Just call 603-471-9999 or visit BealsInsurance.com to request a free quote and start saving money today. Again, that's BealsInsurance.com. How can you reach your team's fundraising goals at no risk and no cost? MG Sports offers a variety of products to make your team's fundraiser a success. Their products include tickets and discount cards to hundreds of local businesses. MG Sports now has a digital platform where athletes can raise funds in the comfort and safety of their own home. Don't waste another season. Raise more funds than ever before and become another football program in New Hampshire that sets fundraising records every season. MG Sports, fundraising made easy. Visit mgsportsfundraising.com to start raising money for your team today. The New Hampshire Tomahawks promote the highest level of club lacrosse competition, not just in the state, but in the country. Looking to get recruited? Director Chris Cameron keeps an open dialogue with the nation's top college lacrosse coaches. Over 400 New Hampshire Tomahawks alumni have played at the college level, including the ACC, Big East, Big Ten, Ivy, NESCAC, NE10, and more. New Hampshire Tomahawks coaching staff has over 100 coaches, including current high school varsity and college coaches. The Tomahawks offer training for players of all ages, clinics, camps, and leagues, along with spring, summer, and fall elite teams. So play with the best. The New Hampshire Tomahawks, showcase and development for college lacrosse. Visit NewHampshireTomahawks.com and girls.nhtomahawks.com.
Hey, I'm Chad, the owner of New Hampshire iPhone Repair. We're New Hampshire's most trusted and affordable repair shop for your iPhone, iPad, iPod, and even Android needs. Don't worry, we're affordable, reliable, and we back our parts with a lifetime warranty. And you know what the best part is? No, what? We can repair your phone while you wait.
I know, that's why I'm here.
Oh, I know, Mrs. Green. Here's your iPad, good as new. Bring your phone into New Hampshire iPhone Repair today.
Buy local and save big. For over 26 years, Spectrum Monthly has been providing great local offers from businesses in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, delivered to your mailbox every month. Spectrum is chock full of savings from your favorite businesses. From local restaurants and retail stores to entertainment, fitness, and home improvement services. You'll have easy access to thousands of dollars in savings, including exclusive offers for Spectrum readers. Every month, enter our readership contest for a chance at winning cash and local gift certificates. Spectrum Monthly, no one brings you better offers.
It's FNL Gridiron here on Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire. We're presented by Beals Insurance. Nick and Astis, Steve Beals with you every Thursday night live at 6 o'clock Eastern. If you can't make the live show time, don't worry. All episodes are archived on our YouTube channel, FNLNH Media. That, again, is Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire on YouTube at FNLNH Media. Check out Joe's stuff as well. Great stuff over at nh-highschoolsports.com. We thank Joe Marshala for joining us. Joining us now is the Bedford Bulldog head coach, Zach Matthews, in the hunt for his school's 4th Division I state championship and 2nd under his command. Of course, the Bulldogs were champions last year as a 10 seed over Londonderry. Coach, good evening. How are you?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Good.
We appreciate it. 9-0 during the regular season. How many shutouts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including a 48-0 victory to close out the year at Merrimack. You had momentum. You have a week off with the bye, and then you're in action on Saturday on your home field. How did your team approach the week off last weekend?
Yeah, so we kind of gave the kids 2 long weekends and then normal week of practice in the middle. So I guess you'd say we worked hard Tuesday through Thursday. And then last weekend, we kind of looked at it as a chance for some of our seniors to go do some college visits, see some schools that they were looking at. You know, that's one of those things we always balance here at the high school this time of year is a lot of our seniors are looking to take a step and have some boxes that need to be checked as far as going to see some schools. So I think we had a pretty good balance. We got some good work in, and the kids also had an opportunity to kind of look at the future and check out some colleges and universities that they were thinking about wanting to attend.
Yeah. Coach, Salem is next up, and some are calling them perhaps the toughest opponent you faced to this point. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, and that's not to discredit any of the teams we played, but what I see on film and what I know historically about Salem football, it's a tough group of kids. I know they've got, I think they're young. I think they're junior laden this year. So I think that it's a hungry group. It's a physical group. They've certainly put up a lot of points against teams and present a lot of problems to defenses. And they're going to challenge us in some ways we haven't been challenged yet this year. And that's certainly something we're looking forward to. I think when you talk about ours and kids like ours, they look forward to games like this. These are the reasons why you play football, and so nothing against our regular season. The regular season was great, but we're looking forward to the challenge, and we can't wait for the game to come on Saturday night.
Yeah. Coach, with an opponent you haven't seen before, at least this season, is there a tendency to tailor the game plan week in and week out to counter the opponent's strengths, or do you just do what you do and make them adjust?
To be honest, Nick, I think it's a combination of both, right? You want to do some things or put in some things that you think the other team might with, or try to take advantage of some opportunities that you feel like you might have. But then again, you got to realize why you're in the position you're in. So, we're in the position we're in because of our players, and there's certain things that they do really well. So you don't want to veer too far away from that or put too much on their plate. But there's certainly some wrinkles that you're putting in at this point in time to try to do some things that the other team's doing. And I'm sure Steve's doing the same thing at Salem. They're looking at our film, trying to, find some of the holes in our armor, if you will, and they're going to put in some things or tweak some things. But, they're a wing T team. They're going to do what they do to a certain extent, but we all expect wrinkles. I mean, wrinkles they come with the territory at this point in time in the playoffs. Point, everybody pretty much knows what to expect from everyone else. All the films are out there, and you're going to try to put your kids in the best position possible to go out and win that football game.
I agree. Yeah, I just want to bring up a couple guys. I mean, you could list 15, 16, 17 guys that we could talk about tonight, but I want to bring up two, Zach, not to in any way diminish the significance of all the rest of the players, but on the young side, Brody Helton. I have been watching this guy on films of games that we haven't been there and watching him throughout the year. And for a sophomore, to play with that kind of maturity and that kind of intensity against upperclassmen has been something I haven't seen. It's been a long time since I've seen someone, probably 3 or 4 years, a sophomore playing at the running back position at that level. What can you say about this young man, and how does he go in to this week taking on, kind of at the helm of the running attack against another running team?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at what Brody's done this year, we expected him to come in and have a great season. I didn't expect it to be this great, to be honest, but I knew he was a great player. We saw what he was able to do last year. To be honest, he got a little bit of a taste of varsity action, but we try to be really careful with freshmen and putting them on a varsity football field because I think it's a slippery slope. And then, we kind of took the training wheels off this year and just let him loose. And so he tore things up in the first part of the season. And then you saw at the end part of the season, people were kind of doing some things to load the box, take him away. I've been super impressed with his attitude, his effort that he brings to the game. The moments haven't seemed too big for him. Talking about a kid who's averaging over 11 yards per carry on the season and really has barely touched the second half of most of his football games. So I think he's excited about the opportunity. Facing some of the better defenses in the state. I think running backs want to get 20 carries. 10 is starting to scratch the surface. They're just starting to get warmed up. And so I know Brody's hungry for more. He's hungry for the challenge. And I think the nice part about our schedule is, he's not banged up at this point in time. We haven't had to ride him. And so I think his legs feel fresh, and I think he's ready to really burst onto the scene, and he's excited for the opportunity.
Just real briefly, what is it that Brody Helton has? If you're going to break him down as a scout and you're going to say, we're going to try to sell him to a college, what does he have that allows him to break tackles and do the kind of things that he does?
Yeah, I'd say that comes down to three things. And I've said this, it's funny because a lot of people have asked me this question. I think number one is vision. He has vision on the football field that you can't teach, meaning there are times where we'll call a running play and it's meant to go to the right, and he sees a linebacker that doesn't fit the gap appropriately, and he'll end up all the way back on the left. I think that was that big run you guys were here for against Nashua North.
Yep.
But he's done that multiple times. So vision, if defenses aren't fitting their gaps correctly, he's going to find the weakness and take advantage of that. I think his agility, as far as his ability to jump, to make a defender miss in space is special. And then lastly, you've got the power. I mean, we're talking about a kid who's 5'10", 210, and when you have that elusive agility and you can make somebody miss, but then if you decide you can put your shoulder down and try to run through them with over 200 pounds of power, I think that's difficult for defense. If I'm a center or a third level defender, a linebacker or a safety, I don't know if he's going to make a move and cut back on me or if he's going to drop a shoulder and run me over. And I think when you talk about that, if our offensive linemen, can do a nice job, giving him 3 seconds of contact, the kid's going to make a special play. And we've seen that from him, and we're excited to see what's up next.
How about Kevin Sheridan? Let's go to the other end of the scale, the other end of the spectrum of a senior. Kevin Sheridan, watch this guy. I don't know what on either side of the ball this guy cannot do. Your thoughts about him, what he's meant to the team this year, and as going into to playing a team like Salem, how important is it to have a guy like Sheridan as one of your bookends?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin's a rock as far as we're concerned on our defensive front, and he was last year as a junior. And I think he stepped up this year, and his game has gone from, being really good to now he's borderline being very special, and somebody that teams have really had a tough time blocking this year. And certainly we've seen a lot of teams that have tried to run away from Kevin, so they try to figure out where he is and try to go to the other side of the field. And I think that that's something that Kevin's had to deal with. But Kevin's physicality at the point of attack, his use of his hands, his ability to create and get off blocks and then make plays, is really special for our defense. And then the offensive side of the ball, I think he's a throwback tight end. When you talk about that, and we use him in different ways, but I feel very comfortable running the football behind him, and I know that he's going to drive, his guy off the line of scrimmage. But if we need to throw the ball down the field, we can throw it to him. We've started experimenting with handing the ball off to him now a little bit now, and we're just trying to find different ways to get him involved because he has a special element of physicality, and he loves to compete. I mean, he just absolutely looks forward to any chance he has to compete, and so I know what I'm going to get night in and night out with that kid, and our defense is really those rocks, those foundations for our defense, and obviously we pride ourselves on the defense that we play here at Bedford High School.
Absolutely, and I'll just add, I hard to add anything to that, Zach. Just fantastic overview. Couldn't agree with you more on every front. But he also has a college frame, which is something that anybody's going to look at. That he could even build on that frame and become even more lethal over the ensuing years. But I couldn't agree with you more. This kid is no matter, almost it seems like the bigger the venue or the bigger the situation, the bigger player he becomes. He's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't just piggyback on that real quick. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that, people have done a lot of talking this year about our schedule, and they think that it's not tough. And what you got to keep in mind is our kids, our coaches, we don't make the schedule, we play the games we've been given.
Right.
And so, when a lot of people think, Bedford probably thinks that they're pretty good and they're taking the playoffs lightly, our kids have been hungry and excited for an opportunity to play some of these other teams that everybody's been talking about. And, kids like Kevin Sheridan, kids like Brody Helton, the kids that we have can't wait for the opportunity for Saturday night to come because they want to show everybody what we've been working on here and that we're sitting on something special. Yeah,
it's everything can be used anything can be used as a motivational factor if it's sold right and you have believers that are buying what you're selling, and there's no question there's buy-in here. These guys I know they're going to be coming full tilt. They've also had a couple of weeks off. How has that worked out? Do you think, would you, looking back in the rearview mirror, would you say, I'm glad we had that bye? Because it just depends. You ask some people, they say, no, I'd rather go at it. What are your feelings on that as you look back, almost a couple of weeks ago? Are you glad you had it? Do you think it's going to make your football team better? Going to help you win the game?
Well, I would say, in all honesty, talk tonight. At about Saturday night at about 7:30 after we play that game, I'll let you know how I feel about it, because I think that all of us go into a bye week and you're excited about the fact that your kids have earned it and you're going to have a home game, and some of those kids that do have bumps and bruises, you can heal them up. But then again, we're a team that's been playing pretty good football, so you're worried about messing with your momentum. So we all know kind of those thoughts that probably are going through all three of our heads. When you talk about Pinkerton, when you talk about Portsmouth, and you talk about us, yeah, you're excited to get some kids healthy, but you're also sitting there saying, geez, I hope we don't, come out sluggish or lose a little bit of that momentum. But in all honesty, I don't know if the bye week until we get to the end of that game and that game is over and we look at the scoreboard.
Yeah, let's take a look at Salem. Have a great fullback, and then they have Gonzalez, and they have Tedisco, and then they have Lumley. That's quite a combination, and they have an offensive line that, although they're young, they seem to be very tactically sound. Um, what do you make of these guys and their success being such a younger group of guys, and how do you motivate your guys against to be very much aware of what they're going to have before them in order to play up to their top level? I mean, Steve has put together an offense that really works.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what Steve's done there this year, and we were lucky enough to play them last year, and when we played them last year here, they were young. And, a lot of those kids played, but they were sophomores. And they gave us all we could handle. They were physical, they were tough. They just weren't really ready yet. And I watch them on film, and you see what a year of maturity, and a year in their system has done for them, and their execution is just much better. Things are crisper, things are cleaner. The offensive line is creating great movement. And you look at the films, there's just a ton of big plays. You don't typically see wing T teams. There are a lot of wing busting out, 80-yard touchdown passes, 70-yard touchdown runs. And I think they're really explosive. They're really explosive on film. And so we've really talked, you're right. There are a lot of threats, and there's a lot of different kids who can do different things. And so for us, it's more whenever you're playing the wing T, you're talking about responsibility football. And the wing T is built on, if they do this, then we're going to answer with this. And so you just really got to play solid fundamental football. You got to try to not do too much. You got to do, what your kids do best. And then your kids have to know what their responsibility is in each situation. And it's all about certainly explosive. We're going to have to be disciplined in our gap control and focused on doing our job and not trying to do too much.
Yeah, one of the things the last point here, Lumley, he's got the ability to throw on his weak side just as he does rolling out to a strong side. Even in the pocket, he's very effective. But to me, when he gets outside of the pocket on either side, both quadrants of the field are in play with this guy. Like your quarterback, I think two of the better quarterbacks in the league. So as a football addict, I'm really excited about this game Saturday night because there's two premier quarterbacks going to go at it, and that's an awful fun thing to watch. So I'll hand it back to Nick. But, Zach, best of luck to you. The heck with the idea. You've beaten everybody you've played. All you can do is beat who you play. And it's going to be really interesting and fun to watch these guys come out motivated. I wish you the best of luck, Zach. You've done a terrific job this year. Let's not kid anybody. You've done a terrific job putting this team together. And go 9-0 is no easy task. I don't care who you're playing. And I don't agree that you haven't played anybody. There's a lot of decent teams, very good teams that you've played this year. And it seems like your guys are ready to go and take take on the iron of the league. I mean, this happens in all kinds of sports. You play who you play, and that's it. So, great job this year. They've been a fun team to watch. To me, it's high level high school football. Some of the things I saw in the field with the blocking schemes and things of that nature have been college level. So, been fun to watch you guys this year, Zach. I wish you the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Excellent group of guys.
Coach, one final bonus question for you. A bonus question. How big is that home crowd then, and what kind of an advantage you think you'll have with the home fans on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's always nice when kids get comfortable in a space. And so certainly knowing that the community's behind us, I think a lot of people are excited about that football game. We certainly have really good community support on Friday nights, and so we're hoping everybody comes out on Saturday night as well. But our kids are excited about it. I've had a bunch of our youth football players and people, reaching out and talk excitement in the community. We can't wait for this thing to kick off. And Steve mentioned the season we've had and talked about some of the things. I'm lucky to work in this community. I'm lucky to work with a group of players that I work with because every single day I come in, we have kids that are excited to get to work, and we for Saturday night. I think being at home is a huge advantage for us, and we really look forward to it.
Coach, best of luck, and thank you again for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Zach.
We'll see you guys Saturday night.
Can't wait.
Thank you. And again, head coach Zach Matthews live from the Bulldog locker room here on FNL Gridiron. Reminder, Our broadcast schedule this weekend looks like this. Friday night, we're on the beach on the seacoast in Portsmouth as Portsmouth plays host to Nashua North. That's an early kick, 6 o'clock Eastern time. We get underway at 5:45. Then on Saturday, we'll see Coach Matthews on the sideline as Bedford plays host to Salem. That is a 5 o'clock start with our coverage beginning at 4:45. Steve, your final thoughts?
Well, Nick, the coaches, the 8 coaches that coach these teams have done a phenomenal job this year. You want to go right through them. You go through Zabolis, you go through Pafford, you go through Zach Matthews, Steve, Coach O'Reilly, Steve Abraham, Coach O'Reilly, Jimmy Lozon. I don't mean to forget
Coach
anybody.
Nayland.
Help me out. Coach Nayland. Absolutely. We saw that last week. How could you forget that performance? And Coach Ball. Coach Ball, I think, is done an amazing job of he's there. He's got there. And his team beat, I think Keene is a tough opponent for anyone to play because they come right at you. They're extremely physical. And they scored, 30-something points or something like
31.
that? Yeah, not
31.
many teams have scored 31 points against Keene this year, Nick. A lot of solid teams are beat Keene 16-12 or something like that. So throw him in there as well. This is a great group of coaches. 2 of them are legends, and some legends in the making here as far as how they prepare their football teams. And I think that don't ever underestimate coaching as it relates to why teams continually make the playoffs and get in the dance, give their teams an opportunity. It is the play on the field, but it's the prep during the week that enhances that play on the field. You heard Zach Matthews break down 2 players that he had. Sounded like a Division I college recruiter breaking down to his, selling a player to a team. He knows his team. He knows who they are. Steve Abraham the same way. Both of these games, Nashua North playing very, very well. Another undefeated Coach Pafford's team played in the East, played some tough teams. And is still 9-0. Beat Dover when Dover was rocking, and tight game 24-22. This is a good a group of 8 football teams, and it's a shame it's all got to happen only in 3 weeks. I wish we could extend it out, but you know me, Nick, I can't help it. But just very excited about this weekend, and congratulations to other teams that came in. Anybody who picks up Auburn, if he's interested in going to college, has got themselves a darn good quarterback. And to me, that if I was a team that felt the most disappointed and kind of thought they would have been great if they could have got there, would have loved to have seen Dover in that group if they could have, because they were fun to watch. That offense and stuff was fun to watch. But I mean, BG was just coming out of the woodwork. I mean, Coach Nayland's game plan and that passing attack. We'll see what happens against Pinkerton. I've heard, talk to people, and I've heard that some people think that most people think Pinkerton is going to win, but there's some people that think that BG's on a roll and they could exploit some potential weaknesses. Quite frankly, I haven't seen many weaknesses with Pinkerton, especially in the defensive secondary, but we'll see what happens because BG is a prolific passing team. Mike McDonough, what a terrific job that this young man has done this year. And he's a heady, smart quarterback. I always get excited. Last point, Nick. I always get excited about quarterbacks, watching quarterbacks when it's crunch time in the playoffs, because these experiences, if they do go on to play at college, can be an extremely valuable benefit to them to be able to play in tough games where the pressure's on and see how they're able to persevere and perform through that. So it's been a fun year, and the best is yet to come. So stay tuned.
All right. It just about
Nick,
does
we're
it for
not
us
really
here
on the beach, are we?
FNL.
We're not really on the beach, right?
Well,
we're at Portsmouth, right?
We're in Portsmouth, but that's close
all right.
enough in my estimation.
All right.
It'll be
you
fun
can smell
tomorrow.
the
We'll be
salt
under
from
the
there.
lights. We'll be under the lights tomorrow night. It'll be windy, a bit chilly here now that we're about midway through November, but that's playoff football weather in New Hampshire. Again, we get off the ground at 5:45 with our pregame coverage. 6 o'clock is the kickoff. And then on Saturday night, final reminder, Bedford plays host to Salem at 5 o'clock Eastern. 4:45 is our pregame coverage. For our director, the man behind the curtain, the wizard of replay, Ben Beals, down in the Beals
Great job.
Insurance Studios. We appreciate Ben, as usual, doing a bang-up job. Want to thank our guest tonight, of course, as well, Joe Marshala of NHHighSchoolSports.com, and also Coach Matthews from the Bedford Bulldogs, and, of course, the sponsors, which include Beals Insurance, MG Sports Fundraising, New Hampshire iPhone Repair, the New Hampshire Tomahawks, and Spectrum Monthly. We appreciate the ongoing support. For my partner, executive producer Steve Beals, my name is Nick Anastas, saying so long. We'll see you next week here on FNL Gridiron, presented by Beals Insurance.